Well, welcome back, Jiu-Jitsu fans. So, Coach Roy here, and I thought it's been a little while. I've got a lot more information in regards to my updates on my cervical spine injury, and wanted to give you actually some really good details here because, quite frankly, I think if you're in Jiu-Jitsu or if you are a wrestler or if you're 55 years old and older, you might actually run into this problem. And so the whole idea of me getting into this is to try to help you, because quite frankly, when I went out on Google or tried to go on the web to find out information, there wasn't a whole lot of really good detailed information on this. And so I thought I would journal kind of my experience, and hopefully it helps. So I'm kind of geeking out a little bit here in regards to the fact that I'm also a retired paramedic and a medical educator. And so I love this stuff, ironically. So I thought that I would get a cervical spine model. So this is the base of the skull. This foramen here, it's actually, this is adhesed. The model that I got is not a real expensive model. So they've actually adhesed and screwed C1. This is actually the C1 vertebrae that's right at the base of the skull. This is the way it would sit in a normal human being anatomically. But this foramen right here is where the brainstem, the medulla oblongata, the pons, the very base of the brain, and then the brain stem, which turns into the spinal cord, goes through this hole and down through the spinal column, okay? And that spinal column, then, if you can see this would be like if the patient was laying face up right now. This is the spinal column foramen, okay? And the cord goes right down from the brain down through this column. And now it's as if the patient is facing that way, like out the window, and this is the back. This is the back of the patient. So these are the spinous processes, C2, C3, C4, which is a little guy, C5, C6, and C7. And that's the whole cervical vertebrae column. Under this one, which it does not show, it has another one that's even probably bigger than this one, and that is your thoracic vertebrae, and that would be the start of T1. So T1 is for the thoracic vertebrae. So this is C1 through C7, the whole neck vertebrae column. Then off to these sides here, these are the nerves that actually come out and feed out to the arms and to the different parts of the upper thoracic body. So I thought that was kind of cool that we had these guys, because these are going to play a part in my explanation as well. And I'm going to try not to make this go too long, but I find it extremely interesting, and it should be very helpful to you to understand how to train for a lifetime in jiu-jitsu, to be able to learn how to do some of the submissions that we do, but be careful of this very important thing we have here called the neck. Now, full disclaimer, I was born with an overly small, not severely small. Some people are born with a very severely small, symptomatic small foramen. The average foramen opening is about, and it's not circular, but at its largest, it's 18 millimeters. Mine, for instance, might have been 12. Okay, so already there was room while everything was healthy, no problems. I developed normally, but as I aged, as I had vertebral disc protrusion through small herniations, thickening of the inside here is actually a ligament, and on the front side here is a ligament. And as that ligament gets old, it thickens and can tear away from the bone. It's supposed to be like it's glued to it and thin, but it helps support the structure. And as it gets old, it peels away, like kind of like, like duct tape that you might have adhering to it. As you get older, it can fray away from that and thicken, and that can protrude into this space, causing problems on the spinal cord, which is what's going on with me. But I thought I would take a moment to kind of explain what the surgeon is going to do, God willing, if I can make it to January 16th, which I'm hoping and praying I do. But January 16th, they're going to be doing a couple different procedures to fix my neck. What's really exciting about the way that Dr. Jeffrey Cantor out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, is going to do this surgery is where it's really special. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that. So the first thing that he discovered that he needed, and this could be different for everybody, depending on your specific neck dilemma, is sometimes you don't need fusions. Sometimes these vertebral discs are not the problem, or they are already disintegrated to a point where the vertebrae are starting to fuse on each other by creating calcium deposits, and the disc is so dehydrated and so beat up, there's no risk of that disc coming out any further. And in those cases, they sometimes can forego any type of fusion. They don't have to put a plate. They don't have to remove the disc itself. They can just leave that alone and go to the back and do what I'm going to describe here in the second part, which is the laminoplasty. In some cases, they do a laminectomy, which is taking the bone completely off, but that's really drastic, and thankfully I don't have to have that. But in this case here, I've indicated the removal of the disc. So this clear space here is the disc. In me, because I don't have the T1 here, I just moved everything up one just to demonstrate this. So this is actually C6 and C7. That's not exactly accurate for what's going to go on with me. It's shifted up one just so I can show you what's going to happen. But in reality, it's going to be this one, and C7 and T1 for me. But to help you understand, they're going to go in and they're going to go in through the side of my neck. So they're going to make an incision, a pretty small incision, and they're going to open that up. They don't have to cut through much. They have to move things out of the way a little bit, but he's very good at it, and they know how to get through there. It's very minimally invasive, actually, even though it sounds quite invasive. And he's going to go in. So figure my neck is here. They're going to open it, go in through, and find my vertebrae behind it. And then they're going to use instrumentation to remove first. So picture this plate is not on here yet, right? I made these little pieces of tape as if they were the actual plates, which will inevitably be put on after. And they will replace, these are kind of getting messed up a little bit, but they will replace the old messed up protruding pieces of vertebral disc. They will replace that with a prepared piece of graft. In this case, it'll be cadaver bone, which is more like it's really spongy. It's got all these little caverns to it. There's no DNA left in it at all. It's just the calcium, which will allow my body to go through, feed it with blood, and make that into one piece of bone. So these pieces of bone, of vertebral disc, will be filled in with bone, and then they will go over that with these plates over the top of C6, C7, C7, and T1, and those plates will be screwed in, and this whole C6, C7, C7, T1 will become like one fused solid platform, and that's their whole goal. They want to make a very strong base for the rest of my healthy vertebrae. as opposed to just taking everything apart and then putting rods in here and plates, and then I can't move anything. It's just going to be one solid bone structure. We don't want to do that. We want to have as much up, down, sideways flexibility as possible. Well, most of that happens up here at C2, C3, C3, C4. It doesn't happen down here at C6, C7, C7, T1. So the good news is most of my movement is still going to be within just a couple degrees of what it is now, maybe even a little bit better. So that's exciting. After that is done, they move to the back. From the back, and I'm going to keep this as simple as possible. From the back, they're going to do what's called a laminoplasty. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but so you have these little bony protrusions here, but on each side of those is what I look at like a bony roof. This part right here. We call that the lamina. And there's one on C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, C6, and C7. I have to, just remember, this is C1 up here. My procedure, I have protrusions into my spinal cord column, especially severe between C2, C3, C4, between C4 and C5, and C5 and C6. That's the worst area of my spinal cord dilemma. And I have some disc, and I also have some of that ligament, that thickening ligament that's pushing in. But there's actually squeezing going on in my spinal cord between C2 and C7. And so Dr. Cantor has decided that because of my lifestyle in jiu-jitsu, because I want to be healthy, I want to be active, I love to surf, I love to snowboard, I love to be active with my kids and my grandkids and my community. He wants to preserve as much of this motion as possible. So Dr. Jeffrey Cantor is unique in that he has found a way to go in and use a very safe cutting procedure called an ultrasonic scalpel. And that ultrasonic scalpel uses vibration of sound waves to cut through bone, but when gently put on soft things like the thecal sac, which is the protective barrier around my spinal cord, it doesn't cut that. And he demonstrates that by touching a balloon or a latex glove with it, and it won't cut it. But on the bone, it vibrates and cuts the structure of the bone. So he's going to go in, and he's actually going to partially cut through one side of each of the vertebrae, just to make a score line, a little ditch, if you will, on these vertebral bones. On the opposite side, he will spend more time and cut all the way through in a straight line each of the vertebrae between C2 and C7. That will make it so that this piece of the vertebrae has room on one side to actually, what we call in medical field, a green stick fracture, meaning it fractures and it can bend, but it doesn't break all the way through. So it's left a little hinge so that when he cuts through on the other side, he can actually take the vertebrae and open this whole vertebrae so that you can see, like, this is the space of the foramen now. When this opens, it's going to make this, let's say mine's at like somewhere between 5 millimeters and 10 millimeters where it's blocking right now, which opens and creates all kinds of space for my spinal cord to float freely in there and have enough room to be able to send communication pathways. Once this is open, I didn't get to this part yet. Once this is opened, there will be a space, obviously, right, where the bones don't meet. That space will be filled with a perfectly sized little piece of bone graft that goes in between there like a door jamb. And then a plate is placed over that, and it's screwed to each side of the original piece of the vertebrae. And that will allow then my DNA, my stem cells, graft that and make those into solid bones, so that I basically have a new, bigger neck tunnel. They will still be able to move left and right. They will still be able to bend. They will still be able to flex. And I'll still have this really great movable C-spine. When it's done, my spinal canal will be more protected and have more room for a longer period of time, even beyond that which normal aging processes would normally obstruct, which is a big reason why people after age 55 start to lose strength in their arms, their legs, their core. They lose coordination, balance. There's all of these little small degradations because of the encroaching of the space that happens to everybody through the wearing out and the calcification and the arthritic changes and the thickening of the ligaments. It happens to just about everybody at different graduating phases. But oftentimes you'll see lack of mobility and a lack of ability to lift, the lack of coordination, the lack of balance, the inability to work out and grow new muscle is all kind of related to everybody's stenosis. That is this narrowing of the passageway. Mine just occurred a little bit faster due to my predisposition, due to having a smaller than normal pathway to begin with, and then some of the changes that have taken place in my life due to wear and tear, posture, whatever. It could be a bunch of things. That's a shortened and condensed version of this, and it took 20 minutes to explain. But there's so many of my friends and family asking what I have going on, and I thought this would be a really good way to break it down, showing what you can't see and you can't imagine, because we have this covering all around. It's very difficult to kind of imagine. I will add one additional thing. These little nerve pathways that come out through the lateral openings, these are foramen as well. They're very small because you just have these little nerves coming through. Oftentimes when people get arm pain, weakness, it's a pinch or it's a problem, an impingement in this area, not in the larger opening. I have some of that going on as well. And so the doctor is going to go in with this ultrasonic scalpel, and he's actually going to clean out some of my lateral foramen blockages as well. So I'm really excited for the outcome. And so I hope this helps. Hey, I know it was long, but that's a pretty decent and complex breakdown on what's going on. And if you have any questions, comments, or you want to open up this conversation, please make sure you message me in the comment section or email me at my Vanguard BJJ Gmail account. Until next time, stay on the mats, keep training hard, be comfortable with uncomfortable as best as you can so you can be the best you possible. Until next time, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.